Coming up, what an excellent day for somnambulism. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to Minute 69 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate the Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Kynan DOES.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. Okay, so our minute begins with an establishing shot of the outside of Barringer Clinic.
And it ends with the doctor considering very carefully before he says what he's going to say next.
Wait, doctors think before they speak in this movie? As Kenan Thompson would say, I don't know about all that. But let's get back to the top of this minute here. Yes, we got our establishing shot of Barringer Clinic. This is the name that has been burned into my brain from the book, but I think this is the first time we see it here in the movie. Is that correct?
Yeah, it should be. I think it's the first time we hear it. Like, we don't have any, foreshadowing of, oh, you know what happens to little girls at the Barringer Clinic or anything like that.
Right, yeah. Actually, have they spoken the name yet? Or are we just reading it on the sign?
I think we're just reading it.
Okay.
They're letting us figure it out.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the audience in 1973, Barringer Clinic.
It's such an impressive establishing shot that I had kind of thought like, oh, this might be a real clinic, like the Mayo Clinic or something. And then I Googled it and found, oh, I've been fooled by Hollywood.
Oh, wait, you actually so it isn't real?
No.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, are you trying to book a flight there?
I was hoping I could get a picture in front of Barringer Clinic. Barringer Clinique. Oh, man. Well, okay, but yeah, speaking of that establishing shot, yes, folks, it is most definitely autumn here. The colors for this shot are slate gray with some muted orange and green. The sky is that perfect overcast where it's like bright and not bright at the same time. Like, this is perfect Halloween weather. You think of Halloween, you think of nighttime, but I feel like the day leading up to Halloween, the sun shouldn't be allowed to shine too much, right? This is how it should be. Like when you're playing outside leading up to Halloween night, I think it should be just like this.
I think we've said it before, but in Nevada, we were very spoiled because Nevada Day was a holiday, which was on Halloween. It was October 31st every year.
Yeah.
So little kids, those were the days.
Those were the days. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, so we open this scene and I actually laughed. I know I'm not supposed to laugh, or maybe I am out of frustration or impatience with these doctors. Kynan, we have been to Dr. Klein's. We have been examined. We have done tests. We have been hypnotized. We have undergone pneumophotography. We've done that twice, right? Pneumoencephalography. Yeah.
Right.
Encephalography. Yeah. Epitome. Like we did the arteriogram twice, right? Like we've gotten our brain drained and then blown up like a balloon. We've been given shot after shot after shot. And now we're at Barringer Clinic. Barringer Clinic, Kynan.
And foundation.
Right? That's what the sign says. And the first words of this minute, even as we are still looking at the sign, are, "It looks like a type of disorder." And I don't know why I've decided to give our doctors that accent. Like people actually, okay, so I heard elsewhere that people are getting called out now. Other podcasters specifically are getting called out now whenever they imitate a stupid person. It's just a Southern accent.
Well, it must be a particular Southern accent, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they don't do Scarlett O'Hara, right?
No.
Stupid person, right?
Right. I don't even know if they're thinking of it hard enough to like actually put like a specific region to it, you know.
They don't do Atticus Finch, right? Or the back. I'm just a poor country lawyer. You don't do that. No. Being stupid, right?
No. I think they're doing like Larry the Cable Guy.
Well, but that's his character.
Yes.
I mean, like that's his character. He doesn't really talk like that. He puts on. So I don't know if do you know that about Larry the Cable Guy?
Oh yeah. Okay, no, that's not his actual voice.
No, it's a character he plays. So
he's doing. So
absolutely.
guys, So guys, if you're mad about that, if you're just getting like all well, dadgummit, these people like we're smart people, you know, like blame Larry the Cable Guy because he started it all, right?
Jeff Foxworthy doesn't sound stupid.
No, he doesn't. Right.
No.
He just makes fun of everybody in his family.
You know, I live part of the time in the South, in Tennessee. That's where my boyfriend lives. And I was struck when I moved out there because Vegas and Honolulu and Los Angeles, the three other places I've lived, are very different in that the county is gigantic, right? So like in the South, it'll be like, you run into someone like, oh, they had a Coffee County driver's license or license plate, right? So they had a Coffee County license plate. So you know how those people are. They had a county, because the counties are so small, and so just over generations, people have developed like stereotypes about these little counties.
Just about the counties, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that is something kind of recurring about the South, is that everyone in the South wants to pretend that they are in the best part of the South and everyone else is in the worst part of the South. Just from my experience, having spent time now in Nashville and and in Atlanta and knowing people in New Orleans and going to visit there, like we're not stupid here, and wherever we are, it's the rest of the South. So there is some kind of like South hating going on in the South for sure. Interesting.
Well, I would extend that to, I mean, basically the rest of humanity. I mean, like, no. Like, I'm serious. Like you go to Los Angeles and people are like, well, they would all talk like this and everything is a question. And, but they would insist that they're not those people that you see on TV. They're not those stereotypical like Valley Girl or surfer dudes, right?
Now, Los Angeles County is gigantic, and there's like 9 million people in it or something like that. But they do, But now that I think about it, they do make fun of people in certain parts of LA County, like the Valley where you live, right?
Yes, right, yeah.
Like the joke would be like, oh, I'm trying to find a place, and I can afford a place in the Valley, and like my friends would be like, well, I'll never see you again if you move to the Valley because I'm never going there. Yeah. so long.
And that's how we like it. Everybody else in LA, stay out. But no, that's the other thing is like if I have to go somewhere, if I'm meeting up with people and it's like, hey, do you want to go hang out at this restaurant, or we're going to go have drinks at this place? And if it's outside of the Valley, my answer will most likely be no. Because if I have to do the 405, then no, then I'll probably be in traffic longer than I'm at the place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but keeping up with our theme of making fun of people from other places, but no, I've sort of, for some reason, I've sort of decided that our doctors talk like hillbillies from Maine,
right?
For some reason, like they sound plenty smart, sitting on their porch and smoking a pipe. You know that new Stephen King book is out, just came out. This one's about a Coke machine that eats people instead of quarters. And down the road a piece at Barringer Clinic
and Foundation.
Well, I wouldn't go down there if I were you, because apparently they got a girl with a disorder.
I think that's an accent from The Simpsons that we've just internalized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's in 22 short stories, 22 short films about Springfield.
Oh, okay.
Lisa gets gum in her hair and she gets taken to the barber, and the barber gives her a bad haircut, but he's like, I'm in the process of fixing it to get the gum out of her hair. And she screams, he goes, what have you done to my hair? All right, I know a little girl who's going to be bald without any lollipop.
Oh yeah, there's some Maine accents in The Simpsons.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that makes so much more sense. Yeah, okay. And like I was basically just imitating. So when Stephen King talks about like his hometown, he goes to great lengths, even spelling words phonetically, just to I guess just to rib on the locals there, and he even like he spells out like that. Yeah. So he likes to do that. Yeah.
Sometimes dead is better.
Sometimes dad is better. So yeah. So that's what all of our doctors sound like here. But yeah, so getting back to what this doctor said, actually, I was fooled, Kynan. I was fooled into laughter. I was surprised by joy, you might say, because that's only part of what this doctor says. I didn't even let him finish. What he actually says is, it looks like a type of disorder that's rarely ever seen anymore, except in primitive cultures, right? Again, we're using, like, are we still using that? Like, we don't use that anymore.
I very much doubt that they would say that.
No. We can't be, even in the 70s. Anyway,
Their culture's not primitive.
No.
Their technology is primitive, if anything.
Right.
Their culture.
Yeah.
Jesus. Dr. Barringer.
Dr. Barringer.
With your big office.
Sheesh.
With your big conference table.
Yeah. But okay, so now as he's saying this, we are treated to a like a blurry blue. Well, I guess it's supposed to be black and white, but it's very much like this ghostly blue. What appears to be footage. Is this a live feed, like from a security camera, or are they watching a tape?
You know what? I was looking at this, comparing it to the script, as we often do, and the script is from, just to remind everyone, from December of 1972. So it is potentially early on. So it's a shooting draft, but they might have made some changes. But in the script, they're not watching any video, and so I think, I mean, I don't know. It feels like this is sort of picked up a little bit. So we see a TV screen with this blue, black and white thing, but I don't think that they have. I don't think they're actually watching it in the scene. I think it's a trick of editing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's like Dr. What's his name has brought in rolled in the TV for Chris to watch this.
That would be very, very traumatic, wouldn't it? Actually,
yes. I think that
I didn't even clock that. I didn't even consider. Now, Miss McNeil, if you just turn your attention to this overhead projector,
right? You like movies, don't you, Miss McNeil?
Oh God! Suddenly he's an evil now. Oh my God!
Right. So I think it is a trick of editing, but it makes perfect sense, logic, like emotional logic when you're watching it. Like, oh yes, we've just shown her this, but that's not what's happening now.
Yeah. So this is the thing they saw before they had the big meeting in what we will see is the space. Yeah.
And Chris, they must not have shown this to Chris.
No.
Here's your little girl, and she's struggling against her restraints.
Yeah.
And you could see we're doing nothing to help her attend to her needs.
Kind of looks like straight out of a horror movie, doesn't it? God. But yeah, I mean, like, to that point, like, whatever it is, it's very, very effective, right? Like, we got Reagan, as you said, like, thrashing around on this hospital bed, like, hair is covering her face. Through the lens of the TV screen, it looks black. I know this came before The Ring, but it's given me some Ring vibes. Actually, like, you don't think this image might have, like, inspired the creators of The Ring, or Ringu, as it's called in Japanese?
In Nihongo.
In Nihongo, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about the Japanese version of The Ring, to be honest. There must be someone who knows it better. But like, yeah, it certainly looks a lot like it, right?
Yeah.
And how do you escape from the Exorcist? How do you escape from
the scariest movie of all time? Right? Yeah. I was just going to say that there was like there's not an alternate universe like in all of the multiverses where Japan, like this hasn't gone overseas and people are talking about this, right? Like,
right. No, the Japanese do watch American films in large numbers. So it's not like an isolated society at all from like one that, like, say a couple years ago, it was hard to see American films in China even, right? But no, Japan after World War II has been open, and they've been seeing American films and vice versa. My Japanese teacher in high school talked about going, when she was in Japan in the 90s. She was an American who had gone over there, and she would like watching American movies that they didn't dub them; they would subtitle them, which is rather unusual. Like, a lot of other countries will just dub over the English. So she said that she would watch like the Three Musketeers with Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen, I think. And Tim Curry, is that the one?
I know Tim Curry's in it, yes.
Right. And she would say that it was fun that you get to read and see the translation because she spoke Japanese and English, right? And she'd be able to see that it was called the Three Gun Soldiers.
Interesting.
And we were like, what? The Three Musketeers have swords. And she was like, Musketeers have muskets, children.
Yes. They are musketeers.
Who use their swords.
Yeah, they also have swords.
They mostly use their swords.
That's the subtitle of the title. It's like the Three Musketeers. We also have swords, which we mostly use.
But that's so weird. Like you hear about the phrase musketeer and you assume it's a sword fighting.
You think of like a rapier or something like that.
Right, exactly, absolutely.
Wow, yeah.
So anyway, so that's apropos of nothing. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the creators of The Ring were influenced by The Exorcist, even if they hadn't realized it, right?
Yeah. I think it would be impossible to look at to like pinpoint exactly how many horror movies or just like movies in general have been affected by this movie. I don't think you can. I don't think that's possible.
Right.
Yeah. But like to that point, I wanted to suggest to you, Kynan, that at some point we talk about this movie's reception in other countries. Like maybe we can do a whole episode on it, or maybe we can just talk about it, once we've kind of like done our research. But I think that would be a fun thing to do.
Oh yeah, that'll take some research. 'Cause I'm not quite sure, but
yeah. But I'm curious, so that's something that we could do like a little deep dive on.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
So from there we cut to a close-up of Reagan's face, and it is scary. She has changed once more, and what I really appreciate here is that even though this feels like maybe not a new act, but certainly we're in a new section of the film here. Whenever I see this scene, I think, okay, here we go. Now it really begins. But what I like is that we're still not given the full-on demon, face Reagan yet. Like even now, right? Even now, the transition is still undergoing, and it's a weird, paradoxical thing, because even though, like I said, this change stirred within me some sort of feeling like, okay, we're really getting into it now. We're past the point of no return. Even then, looking at it now, it doesn't look like they added much since last time. The main difference here is like the scratches on her face.
Right. So I do listen to our show, just to reiterate to Lester so he believes me. But I've started to get annoyed with myself as a character, because I feel like in every scene I'm like, so this is the beginning of a new phase. But I don't know if that's because this is our first time doing a movie by minute format, or whether this movie really is just constantly sort of ramping up in new scary directions. In ways that
seems like it has like a lot of good bookmarks.
Yeah. So like I constantly am as a character in the podcast saying like, and this is where it's really starting, and this is where it's really starting, and now we're an hour and an hour and 10 minutes almost into it. Like this does, you're right, feel like the beginning of it.
Yeah, and like I think I have some reasons why, and I'm gonna get to that. But like the scratches on the face, like going back to her transformation, it. Like I said, all I can see that's different are those scratches. And I guess that just goes to show the magic of pacing, of timing, of editing, of music. We got Tubular Bells coming back. That might have more to do with it than anything else, right? Because remember, like in our last episode, I said to you, I felt like when Tubular Bells first came on, I was like, oh, this is where the story begins, right? And now we got Tubular Bells making a comeback. And I'm like, oh, this is where like the next act happens, even though like I don't think this is like the demarcation for the next act, right? But it just seems like the magic of like storytelling, right? That you can look at Reagan in the previous scene and be like, oh, that poor girl. And then the next scene with Reagan, you're like, yep, that's a demon. And all it took were a few scratches. And of course, I know that it's not just a few scratches. There's also Linda Blair's performance doing a lot of or maybe all of the heavy lifting here. You got the performance, you got the new makeup, and you got our old friend Tubular Bells coming back in the background, right? Very, very effective.
Yeah. Speaking of how we come back to Tubular Bells, you said a callback, or what did you say? It's a comeback or something?
It's like a comeback, yeah.
Yeah. In music, they call it a motif, right? Or a leitmotif, right? Where it's being repeated, and then there's slight variations, and then you're so in a larger like orchestral piece, you might have a little bit of I don't have the musical terminology, I'm sorry, but a couple of bars of something that is similar or repeated, and then we track the emotional progress of the piece overall, like through the tiny little changes, and that's basically how film works. Film is very similar to symphony or orchestral pieces like that. In Keith Johnstone is an author I really like. He has this really weird book called Impro, which is an improv book. And he talks about reincorporation. That's not his term for it, but the idea of like by the middle of the story, we're not adding new elements necessarily. We're reusing the old elements in different ways. So we come back to things, and reincorporation, as he says, gives the illusion of narrative. So have I talked? Now we have so many episodes. Have I talked about Guardians of the Galaxy on our podcast?
I don't think so, folks. By the way, okay. So again, right, for both of us, this is Baby's first podcast, right? And like I remember listening to other podcasts and them not being able to remember what they said on previous podcasts. I was like, these idiots, how do they not remember? And here we are, folks.
Okay. Well, the basic,
but no, I'm pretty sure you didn't.
Okay,
I
don't think so. You might remember, right? But like, I think this is one of the best examples of reincorporation for me because it feels so meaningful when it actually isn't. If you think about it logically. So at the beginning of the film, Peter Quill is on Earth, and he goes to see his mother, or they bring him to see his mother who's dying of cancer.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you might not have seen this.
Oh.
Right?
Did you just spoil it for me?
No. That's just the premise of the movie.
Okay.
But I just remember from our time on the Marvel Movie Minute, you haven't seen a lot of these movies.
No.
Okay, so anyways, he's a little kid, and he gets brought in, and he's he's a little kid. And he doesn't understand his mother's dying, and he's resenting his mother dying, right? It's a very powerful scene. And then his mother reaches out to say, hey, hold my hand, Peter, and he runs away instead. And then he runs away and is immediately abducted by aliens, so he never gets to see his mother pass away.
Oh, damn!
Yeah, that's pretty good for the opening of a Marvel movie.
Wow.
So then he's in space and he meets the Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And then in the action climax, they have to form a human chain, and I forget why. It doesn't actually matter, but they're forming this human chain, and then Gamora is reaching her hand out to Peter, says, "Peter, take my hand," or whatever, and then Peter thinks there's a shot of Chris Pratt thinking, and then he grabs her hand, and it doesn't mean anything, Lester. No. It doesn't mean that he's forgiven himself for any. It's just the reincorporation, right? So that basic reincorporation of that image, brings you to tears just hearing.
Yeah.
But so just that basic reincorporation gives the illusion of narrative. So that's why it can be so effective with music specifically of hearing this thing again, and now we're in a totally different place.
Oh wow! While you were explaining that, I could not help but think about we had just seen Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh yeah,
and my favorite character in there is Deirdre Beaudeirdre.
Yes, she's the best.
Gosh, she's the absolute best, and played by the amazing Jamie Lee Curtis, by the way. But apparently, and I didn't get this the first time I watched this, and then I watched like a YouTube video explaining it. Her whole theme, or I guess her motif, is Claire de Lune.
Okay.
Is it Debussy?
It's
Debussy?
Debussy, you have to say. You
Debussy.
Can't say, as the kids would say today, Debussy.
Debussy? Okay. Well, yeah. So that guy. So that plays every time she's on screen, but it plays in different ways. Like there's even a part where it's like really, really slow motion, and it's people singing, and they're like, "I love you, I love you, I love you." It's right before Evelyn has to say, "I love you." And yeah, oh man, it like I have so much appreciation for that because it got to me without me knowing that it got to me, and then I watched someone explaining it, and I'm like, aha, that's why it got to me, and now I can appreciate it even more. It's like a trick that after you know how it works, it still doesn't ruin the magic.
Right, exactly.
Right. But yeah, so back to our minute here. So the doc is still speaking throughout all of this. He's been speaking this whole time, and he continues saying, "We call it somnambular."
Oh my God! The whole time.
The whole time.
Sorry, that was delayed. We have to do that. It's the rule.
Yeah. Careful listeners might have noticed that I paused.
Oh, did you? Sorry, I was thinking too hard. I was too focused.
I was like, I guess he's not going for it. All right.
I feel like I've let you down.
I guess that joke is worn out.
No, absolutely not.
Kynan just doesn't like that joke anymore.
Absolutely not. I love all our recurring jokes equally.
Okay. He listens to the show, folks. He does. Okay, well, yeah, but like, yeah. Oh, now I'm avoiding saying the whole time.
Yes, it's too. I've messed it up. Go ahead, say it. Say it. It's fine.
No. I was. No, we're keeping all of this in. But yeah, so he's been speaking throughout this entire like visual journey that we've been going on.
Very nice.
Yes. and he continues saying, "We call it somnambular form possession." So the first thing that comes up when you search somnambular form possession is a black metal band. And the next thing you find is another metal band.
Oh no, who's stealing from who?
And then you find links to this scene in The Exorcist, and then articles about actual possession. So what I'm saying, folks, is that the internet has failed us in this instance because nowhere can I find a medical condition called somnambuliform possession, no matter how I spell it. Which then raises the question, did Blatty make this up? Because it's in the book. It's the same thing is in the book. Or did it at one time exist and has since been like re-examined and renamed as another type of like somnambulism? Or is it like completely dissociated with somnambulism or something like that? Like, is it like, would it be like in an old 1973 book, it's like somnambuliform possession, see, this more modern term or something like that?
I imagine you'd still be able to find it if it were real, right? Because there's revisions to these things. Like I think the most famous one to lay people is the DSM, right? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is usually for psychiatric disorders. And that gets updated not all the time, but they're on like 5 and they're working on 6 right now, right?
Right.
So, but like you could still Google and find the old terms for that for sure, like multiple personality disorder, which we would now call DID,
DID,
dissociative identity disorder, right?
Yeah, and then like even being confused with like schizophrenia, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So since we had trouble finding it, I do lean towards it being something that is made up or maybe simplified. Maybe the term is simplified by Blatty.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, we've put it out there. Like, if anybody knows, like, somnambuliform possession, like, because it sounds like it's different from somnambulism. But because I couldn't find anything on somnambuliform possession, I just did like a little deep dive into somnambulism.
Right.
And so that somnambulism, probably better known as simply like sleepwalking. But it covers more than just walking in your sleep. It ranges from like small stuff like sitting up in bed or talking in your sleep to there have been reports of people cleaning the house or even driving cars.
Yeah, the story that I heard that I think is great is that this old lady she was driving in her car and she was driving down the boardwalk, which is just in her sleep. And so what they had to figure out, how do we do this? Are we going to, tie Nana down or something, which is awful.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing was she had to put her keys in a safe that had a timer on it.
Oh.
Yeah, so the timer would not open until the morning. Yeah. And I don't know if they recorded her, but like I wonder if in her sleep she was like messing with this safe or anything like that.
Yeah. There is a TikTok account I follow of this comedian who like half of her stuff is like just her doing comedy out in the world. And then other half is like she like her husband just started recording her sleepwalking because it freaked him out. And her just like walking around and her eyes are completely open.
Right.
And that's like and she's walking around like as if she's like fully awake. But yeah, I don't know. It seems I've never seen it like in real life before.
Oh, that would scare the crap out of me. And probably my favorite comedian right now, or at least one of them, is Mike Birbiglia. Do you know his work?
No.
He's great. I think you would like him. They're very long form, sometimes more like story sessions. So they're kind of like he does really well like the Moth Hour like kind of storytelling.
Okay, that's my favorite kind of thing.
Yeah, like really kind of low key. Like he's very funny, but it doesn't necessarily feel like he's telling jokes, right? And one of his pieces, probably the one that made him famous, is called "Sleepwalk with Me," and it's about him dealing with his sleepwalking and trying to deal with it and realizing it's a problem, but it culminating in him throwing himself through the window of his second story hotel room at the La Quinta Inn like the Hulk.
Whoa!
Yeah, just throwing himself through the window and landing, a story down covered in broken glass.
Oh my God.
It's like, well, I think we have a problem.
Yeah. Talking about falling out of windows. Sheesh. Oh my God. I guess a better layman's term rather than sleepwalking would be like sleep doing. Right. Because like you're in this weird liminal state where you're asleep and awake at the same time. Right. I think we got a lot of those in LA, especially on the 405. Hey.
So somnambulism, right? The sleepwalking or something like that. That is in probably the earliest horror movie that people still watch, which is called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh yeah,
which is also sort of the first like major German expressionist film that we still watch. So the Dr. Caligari in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is controlling Caesar, the somnambulist, and that's played by Conrad Veidt, who is the bad guy in Casablanca, but then also is known as like the man who laughs, and people think of him as like the progenitor of the Joker.
Right. Yeah. The inspiration for that. Yeah.
So he's a somnambulist, and so he's being controlled. So there is sort of this link between the idea of sleepwalking and being possessed in movies, which also gives us the idea of the zombie, right? And the original zombie before George Romero made the zombie into a reanimated dead person.
Right. Yes.
So you might know about that. Like the original conception of the zombie comes from like voodoo and hoodoo, like West African culture, and then when it comes to the Caribbean, and the zombie is not a dead person. The zombie is being possessed by a witch, or I'm not sure of the right term in that culture, but possessed
some kind of
by
like magic
a magician.
person.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And going and doing their bidding, and sometimes they do harm to themselves. Right, they're controlling them like our conception of a voodoo doll, right, where we're harming that person. But oftentimes we're using the zombie to do misdeeds that we don't want to get caught on.
Yeah, I do remember that from like. I read a lot of weird books as a kid, but that was one of those things. Like in the library, you'd have like vampires, ghosts, and werewolves, and you read it, and it talks about like the origins of all these monsters. And I remember specifically zombies coming from like a voodoo, like shamanism and stuff like that. And I don't know, like maybe the book that or the books that I was reading got it wrong, because they kind of mixed it up a little bit. They said that it was a dead person, but that they were like ceremonially like worked on and brought back to life, and not like the rampaging George Romero or Walking Dead zombies that you see, but kind of just like as slaves or something. Yeah. So I mean, it could be. I'll have to double check, but like it sounds like what you're saying is more accurate, where it's like it's a person who's kind of been put under a spell.
Oh well, let me clarify what I was saying. I apologize about that. So in the Romero version, you die and you turn into a zombie through some kind of no one's doing that to you,
right?
But in voodoo, it is necromancy. It is you are reviving a person who is dead, but it's not you. Someone has to be controlling that person. Yeah. As a slave. So I'm sorry. I see where I was being unclear.
Gotcha. Okay.
There are movies, however, that later on use the idea of a zombie, like Jacques Tourneur's "I Walked with a Zombie," where the main character sees a woman. She's supposed to take care of a woman. She's the nurse to this upper class lady, and she's a zombie who is not dead.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm sorry. I'm conflating a bunch of different things, right?
No. I think that's we as I think pop culture in general has conflated like all of those and like turned zombies into like almost vampire like creatures. Like talking about
nowadays. If you said zombie and it was from a necromancer or a magician, people would be like, that's not a zombie at all, right? But that's the original version of it. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. So when they're talking about this is again Dr. Barringer's quote, but like primitive cultures, etc.
Right. Quote unquote primitive. Yeah.
Right. I think that they're talking about zombification, which in anthropology, people would try to find like, okay, like where does this come from culturally? Again, being a skeptic and not saying like, well, they're actually reviving the dead or anything like that. That's not possible. But I think there have been cases where people have, I'm trying to be respectful, but like in some kind of mental illness case, like see themselves as zombies.
Right. Yes. I mean, that goes with there's a part in this book right here where Karras later talks about how like the line between you believing something and it actually being real is actually very thin. Like he talks about a report, I think it was like in Germany, where a man believed that he was a werewolf and he murdered his family.
Oh God.
And it's like, well, he might not actually be a werewolf, but he murdered his family. So, it like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's like, if you believe you're this dangerous thing, or let's say like, if you believe that you've been put under a spell and are a zombie, or if you believe that you died, even though you didn't, and you're a zombie, you're still in that, zombified state, like cultural. And again, it all goes back to the brain, folks. Our brains, we can manipulate our brains into believing anything.
Right.
And we can see and hear things that aren't there. We can feel things that aren't there. It's absolutely nuts. It's you would say mind-boggling.
Yeah, but I think that's what they're getting at here. Thinking about when they're talking about the again, his words, quote unquote, primitive cultures. I think they're talking about the disorders where people would think that they are zombified.
Okay, very interesting.
Doing things against their will, right?
Right. And so they're saying that perhaps this is what's going on with Rayan.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. And from what I can see, so we're talking about somnambulism, right? And its association, like in the past, possibly with zombification, right? Somnambulism, maybe. But like from what I can see, somnambulism seems to be the exact opposite of another thing, which has been kind of like misinterpreted, like in the past before we knew what it was, called sleep paralysis, which I think we're all kind of like pretty familiar with nowadays, right? And that is when you're still in REM sleep, and your body can't move, but part of your brain is still awake while the rest of you, your whole body is shut down for the REM sleep cycle. So you might not know it, folks, but yeah, like your body paralyzes itself when you're in REM sleep to ensure that you don't like get up and start acting out your dreams.
Like being late to the first day of class. You would go act that out. Terrible.
Right. And you just run into your door or whatever, right? And so sleep paralysis, your brain kind of puts your body in this like semi-paralyzed state so that, you know, you don't get up and start doing those things. And sleep paralysis happens when you somehow wake up in the middle of that, which is it just sounds absolutely terrifying. I've never experienced it before, but oh my God, right?
I've had one instance where it happened to me.
Really?
Yeah, just one, luckily, where I had my eyes open and I could tell I was awake, but I couldn't move, and I was trying to like jolt myself awake. And I don't know how long it was, but it felt like forever.
Oh my God. I like from what I'm reading about, it's so your body is paralyzed, but you're in REM sleep, which is when dreams happen. And so your eyes are open and you're seeing your dreams.
Yeah, I've had friends explain it to me who have had it that feel much different than the way I had it, where they see a sleep paralysis demon or something.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like a popular culture thing now. It's like, oh, that's what my sleep paralysis demon looks like. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I've had them. They've explained it to me that they see it like in their doorway or what have you. It's really, really terrifying.
Yeah. Oh God. And I mean, folks, this has now been tied back to so many instances in so many cultures. I mean, we don't even have to go far. We can look at like Salem, Massachusetts, where victims would accuse these supposed witches, these quote unquote witches, of sending their spirits out to like sit on the victim's chest at night and like choke them or try to suffocate them or something like that, right? And there's all of these cultures where there is some kind of monster, usually something that like crawls up onto your bed and sits on top of you, like sits on your chest to like suffocate you. And what that is again, because your body is in this like semi-paralyzed state, your lungs, you're not actually breathing as deeply as you would when you're awake. So even your lungs are kind of like almost in this like semi-collapsed state, right? You don't take as many deep breaths. So, but you're awake. And so you try to breathe in and you can't because your body is shut down. And so, of course, like your brain is going to like create this like monster that's sitting on your chest. And it fascinates me how many different cultures have a mythical monster that does that to you, specifically because of sleep paralysis.
Well, I made the mistake as you were talking about Google imaging sleep paralysis demons. And of course, there aren't any photographs, luckily.
No.
Just drawings and paintings. But I'm gonna put my phone in a safe with the timer on it.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so so sleep paralysis, but now they both happen. So somnambulism and sleep paralysis happen kind of like in different states of sleep, right? So sleep paralysis happens during REM sleep. So your mind is awake and you're seeing the dreams that are playing out, right? Sleepwalking, and I still can't wrap my head around this, happens deeper, like apparently in NREM sleep or non-REM sleep. So your body is releasing all these hormones and it's repairing itself. And I guess it's not paralyzed, but it's also not dreaming. You're not dreaming during this time, I guess. I might be wrong. But from what I'm understanding, the roles are swapped. Your body is awake, but your mind is asleep. Folks, if anybody out there understands this a little bit better, we'd love to hear your explanation. Just write in theexorcistminute@gmail.com. We'd love to hear that. But in any case, as fascinating as this is, Kynan, neither of those things seem even remotely like what is going on with Reagan. So like I can only assume that somnambulism and somnambuliform possession, whatever the fuck that is, must be two different things. Because Kynan, if these doctors are suggesting that Reagan is doing all of this stuff because she's sleepwalking,
well, again, I think that they're suggesting perhaps that she is in a suggestive state, that she is, being able to say like I am being controlled by somebody else as a zombie, right? Or a possessed demon person. So that
right.
So I get to punch my mom in the face and I get to not do my homework anymore.
Right.
I think that's what they're suggesting.
All right. So less of like, because I can just see them. It's like, well, it looks like this little girl needs a nap.
Oh, I don't know about that, doctor. She's already sleeping.
Oh, yes. Have you tried warm milk? Or brandy? That's what doctors drink.
Maybe a stiff story about the way it was around here before the war.
An old Mrs. Johnson's house. I wouldn't go up there if I were you. No. Okay. So, in any case, Reagan is now tied to the hospital bed, and she is snarling at these doctors and possibly saying things that we can't make out. We cut from that scary close-up of her face, and we see a new batch of Wait, what did we decide? A new country club of doctors.
That's right.
That's the collective term. We see this new group of, I guess, Barringer doctors, and they're looking at Reagan with none of the empathy that she got from Klein. They are looking at her as if she were a case study of something they have never seen before, which I guess they haven't. But it's all like clinical looks from these doctors and this one nurse in the background, right? It's weird because at first glance, the two male docs look troubled, but somehow I read it more as I can't identify this and it troubles me. Not like I'm troubled for the girl, right?
Right. I was struck by how much they just look like Dr. Klein.
Oh, really?
Like clearly, I mean, one of them is Dr. Klein, but then the other one is not Dr. Klein. They just look like twins.
Wait. Is one of them Dr. Klein?
Is it not? Is the guy on the left not Dr. Klein?
Isn't that our guy, Mr.
Oh my God! So the guy on the left is the doctor from the Barringer clinic, and the guy on the right is some other doctor.
That's what I'm. Wait. Hang on. Let me see.
Oh God, you're right.
Yeah.
So why are they all come out of the same central casting?
Right.
You're right.
Folks, what we're saying,
white guys.
What we're saying is not to generalize, but all doctors look alike. I'm just saying. Yeah, they're all clones of Dr. Klein. They're all Klein clones.
Okay, so I'm right that our guy looks like Dr.
No, you're absolutely right. That doctor, okay. that this doctor on the left looks like Dr. Klein, right? Yeah, that's what they do. When you become a doctor at the level of these doctors, you have to be bald.
Right.
It's like those Gregorian monks. You gotta shave that little top part of your head, right?
Right.
But yeah, so. But then, also, there's a couple other doctors here. This lady doctor also seems to have this soft.
You can't say lady doctor.
Why not?
A lady doctor?
Oh no. Of course, this doctor. No. Don't you dare accuse me of that. No.
No, that's what I'm saying. Don't accidentally. Let's not go past that and have people accidentally think that you.
No.
You mean it like that.
No.
Lady doctor.
Of course, I don't mean that. But. But I'm trying to differentiate between these. Okay, this non-bald doctor, right? Hang on, where the hell is it? So I can pinpoint her position in this thing. Okay, there we go. Okay, this doctor on the far right.
The woman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Kynan, the woman.
All right, what were you going to say about her? Then I'll talk.
I can't operate on this boy because he's my son. How is this possible? One of these days, that'll be the easiest riddle in the world. But not yet, folks.
Today is not that day.
Today is not that day. But yeah, but she's looking at Reagan. And at first I was like, oh, she has this like soft, sympathetic expression. But you look a little bit closer and it looks like academic curiosity.
Right.
Right. The only one who's different is the nurse in the back. She seems to have like the best poker face. Like I couldn't tell if she feels for Reagan or she is scared or disgusted. Right. Like she's keeping it all inside.
That's again, these nurses, they're the ones who are running this thing.
Exactly. Right. They don't let their emotions get in the way of their professionalism. Yeah. But behind them all, Kynan, also staring at Reagan, we got a camera mounted up on that wall. And I guess that's the camera whose lens we were looking through, the angle. That seems about right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, one of these guys, as you have pointed out, I guess it must be, it's the doc on the far left. He is credited in the X-ray as Dr. Barringer, which at first I was like, well, that's weird. Like you rarely ever meet people that the buildings are named after, but like truth is stranger than fiction and Friedkin is using real people. So, but then I realized, no, he's being credited as Dr. Barringer. So they got this guy, Peter Masterson, playing a doctor named Barringer in Barringer Clinic. Does that strike you as odd a little bit?
That is very odd. I mean, of course, you live at the Clark house and I live at the Diaz house.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Oh, actually, do you know what I call my condo is? I call it Bacon's house. Bacon is my cat.
Oh, there you go, right?
So when I'm talking to my friends or talking to my boyfriend, I say, yeah, come on over to Bacon's house. We'll have a party, yeah.
You just pay rent at Bacon's house.
Yeah, exactly. It's... I didn't believe it. I'm done with the X-ray. I'm not going to look at this Amazon X-ray anymore. It's burned us too many times.
I mean, we'll do, folks. Not to say we'll do our best to do all this research, but trusting this X-ray has fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 4, 5, 6 more times. And we're still going to check it. Yeah.
Right. But in the communist future where we've overturned Amazon, we no longer have the X-ray. But no, he's listed elsewhere as Dr. Barringer.
Yes.
Not in the script. They never say his name. In the script, he's just called clinic director. So he's the Barringer Clinic and Foundation director, I suppose. Foundation, yeah. But yeah, that is odd. That is like Trump calling Tim Cook Tim Apple.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? I don't know. I just never thought of the owner or proprietor being alive and present unless it's like a smaller business, like Bernie's Bagels or Paulie's Pizzeria, right? Those guys are going to be around and they're going to be semi-celebrities in the restaurant, maybe even the little plaza, right? It's expected, like Mario Brothers Plumbing, right? You go in there and it's Wario behind the desk and you're like, who the fuck is this? Right? 1 star on Yelp. But actually, Kynan, 1 star is all they need. Yeah. But you had some stuff on this guy, Peter Masterson, yeah?
Yeah, but now I can't even recognize him when looking at his face.
You're just going to start talking about Barton Heyman instead.
I thought it was Barton Heyman. Yeah. So anyways, Peter Masterson, who is playing
Dr. Barringer.
Dr. Barringer, which is odd, right? So he has an interesting career. I was looking into him. So I have heard the name several times. He's been around in a bunch of theaters, but theater plays and a bunch of films. But he is the cousin of Horton Foote, who is one of the great playwrights. So yeah, he wrote the screenplay for To Kill a Mockingbird. Horton Foote did, and he won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. The Man from Atlanta, and I can't remember the other. Oh no, I'm sorry. He has 2 Oscars that he and then he won the Pulitzer for The Man from Atlanta.
Wow.
So big deal. Southern writer, etc. So Peter Masterson directed one of Horton Foote's plays into a movie which is called The Trip to Bountiful, which won an Oscar for Geraldine Page. So he's a director of some major films, and then also is a playwright for the book or the musical of The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh,
do you know that one? It's most famous for the movie version, which is Dolly Parton.
Right. I haven't seen it, but that's a name that gets thrown around. And every time they say it, I assume they're talking about the movie, not
yeah. It's quite a name. Best little whorehouse in Texas.
For sure.
Yeah, so he has an interesting career where, he's a character actor like this who, I am sorry, just blended together with all the other white bald doctors.
Identical to Dr. Klein here.
Right, but I did want to point out that he's been in a bunch of things, like In the Heat of the Night as an actor, and then had his career as a director and a playwright. And his daughter is Mary Stuart Masterson, who is one of the great actors of the early 90s who hasn't had but you gasped, so I suppose you know her.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Oh, good. She's one of those cases where it's like always tragic. Like people were like, what happened to women like, Mary Stuart Masterson, right? Because she was this woman in the early 90s who was gigantic and in all sorts of really important stuff. And then, Hollywood doesn't really support women after a certain age, and they sort of phase themselves out because there aren't roles for women.
Yeah.
But that's her. I mean, she's the lead in Fried Green Tomatoes, and then, is not as prominent anymore.
Yeah.
Through no fault of her own. I just want to be clear about that, right?
Yeah. Screw Hollywood. But yeah, so now Regan slams back down onto the bed, and we then cut to an angle, like sort of like down the length of Regan's arm. I didn't realize until watching it again, her arm is sort of like reaching out into the audience as if beckoning. And yes, like she's murmuring something here through those like cracked and bleeding lips. And as if hypnotized ourselves, we move in closer. The camera moves in closer to that whispering face that's staring intently at what? Again, folks, we got this staring off into the void or at something that we can't see. We're going to start seeing more of this as the demon takes hold. But remember what I said about how our characters are oftentimes caught staring at nothing or at something that we're not seeing, perhaps on another plane, in another world, right? And of all of our actors, I think Linda Blair is the best at this. When she looks at nothing, you are so curious as to what she's actually looking at, right? Like what she's thinking or even who she is, right? Is this Regan? Is this Howdy, right? Are they talking to each other right now? Like when Linda Blair looks at nothing in this film, she makes you believe that it's something. Kynan, I wanted to check in with you. I know there's probably no right or wrong answer here, but what do you think is going on here? Like, who is making Regan's mouth move? What are they saying? What are they seeing? Is it two of them talking to each other? Is it Howdy being like, yes, good, right? Or is it Regan being like, I want to get out of here? Like, what do you think?
I think I could be wrong, when we look at minutes in the future, but I think Regan is gone, right? And this is all Howdy. That's what I think is going on. What do you think?
That's what I was thinking too. I almost kind of saw it as, so when she's shouting at the doctors, I think it's Howdy shouting at the doctors. And Regan is like completely gone.
Yeah, I think she's completely gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get this shot. She's lying down and she's staring at nothing, and she's sort of like murmuring and whispering. I think that's also Howdy. And he's doing this thing because he does this in the book. He kind of like soothes Regan and he like quiets her down. He's like, shh, like just relax. Right. It's not as kind as I'm like making it. It's very disgusting and disturbing.
But not that she's just a vessel, that she's still in there.
Right. That's the feeling I get from the book is that sometimes he like talks to her but
this feels like he's the vessel, or she's just the vessel to me.
Oh, okay. So he's like whispering like it's almost time or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if he's talking to her. Why would you have to talk to her out
I don't
loud
know
if you are in control of her?
No. So I'm saying what you think is going on is he's whispering like maybe to himself. He's like, very soon, right?
Yes, that's what I would assume. He seems like a talker. He seems like someone you put him in a room by himself and he can't help but saying things.
Right, yeah. You leave Captain Howdy alone in a room, as a like a psychological let's get a psychological profile on Captain Howdy, right?
Yeah, you leave me alone in a room with no stimulation, and after a while I just sing Animaniacs list songs. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, El Salvador too.
And then we intersplice that grainy black and white footage of you singing that to it's like, it appears to be a type of disorder. We call it somnambuliform animania. But no, like all that to say, like this shot right here is really, really effective, right? Like, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think Reagan is gone. This is Captain Howdy, and Captain Howdy is whispering and babbling, using Reagan's mouth, right? Which is just like, yeah. But yeah, now all the while that this is going on, our Dr. Barringer is talking. He's still talking. He continues saying, quite frankly, we don't know much about it at all. Right? Isn't that just like the last thing that you want to hear from a doctor? Like on one side, you feel validated because you're like, ha, I was right. You thought you knew what this was with your degrees and your little lab coats, but you don't, right? Like I've brought you a problem that you can't solve. But then like on the other side, you're like, you go to Barringer Clinic
and Foundation
and Dr. Barringer himself is telling you that he's stumped. Like Kynan, on a smaller scale, we've all had this experience, I'm sure. Like at one point in our lives, we have all gone to some tech guy at work or some genius at the Apple store, right? Like with a problem that we know isn't going to be fixed by the first 3 or 4 things that they suggest. Why? Because we've already tried those things before. And we drove all the way out here to this fucking mall just to have some blue-shirted son of a bitch suggest them again as if they weren't the first things that we tried before coming out here, only to have them scratch their heads and say, wow, it's never done this before. And you're like, ha, that's right. But then you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Have you tried not being a total asshat with technology?
Yeah.
I've tried that. No, but this is a little bit different than a genius because this is, as you say, the Dr. Barringer at the Barringer
this would be like Mr. Apple.
Tim Apple.
This would be Tim Apple telling you that he doesn't know how to fix your iPhone.
Or if I go to Carl's Jr., the guy behind the counter has a name badge that says Carl on it, right? Carl Sr. even. I'm like, you got my order wrong. And they're like, I don't know what to tell you.
Your father would be so disappointed. So our Dr. Barringer here is truly stumped, right? All he can say is that it might have something to do with a conflict or a guilt, which must ring some alarm bells, right? Like, I think we talked about it in a previous minute, but as we watch this, I'm constantly trying to discern, when does the thought enter Chris's mind? Like, you almost imagine it must have done so off screen. Or wait, am I rushing ahead here? Like, has Chris not put 2 and 2 together yet, do you think? Right? Because we have that Kinderman scene coming up, right? So like here, the doc says guilt, and maybe Chris thinks divorce and not Burke, right? But yeah, so our doc continues, right? He says, it leads to the patient's delusions that his body has been invaded. I like how he's saying, like, he's talking about Reagan, but he's still saying his.
Yeah, that's what they used to do back then.
Right? Like, he got this straight from a textbook, dude, and you can't even change it to hers. Like, come on.
Yeah, they used. I've read some pieces from about this time period of the mid 70s or so, and of people, like refusing to say his or her. And now, we saw a similar transition where people started saying they, which is just easier than him or her.
Yeah.
So like the indefinite they, right?
Yeah. And folks, anybody who's still hung up about that, we did that before this big change.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
We've been doing that.
But yeah, I'm even taking it away from like trans issues or LGBTQ issues, right? Like they is just a very helpful term, and we say it all the time.
You're going to go to the doctor, and they're going to prescribe you. Like we've been saying that. Yeah.
Someone lost their wallet. Oh, is there ID in it? Right.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy.
Did they find it? Yeah.
Did they find it? I hope they're okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so like I've read like completely unrelated to language. Like I read a film textbook, and there's a prologue about like I am not going to give in to this new change of saying his or her. It's so clunky. Like I'm just gonna say in English we just say his, and that's just the way it is. And like you're using like 2 or 3 pages of space at the beginning of your textbook to say this. Yeah.
Wow. That's so. I mean, like people were getting all uppity about that.
Yeah,
about
and
that change.
Again, this wasn't a like English language textbook or something, or a composition textbook. This was just a film criticism textbook from the 70s.
Wow, and as recent as the 70s, folks.
Yeah.
That that always fascinates me. Just like I guess, Mark Twain said it, right? Like history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
Right.
Right. And you can see all of these echoes just kind of like, all along the timeline. Right. And it's like, that's really, really fascinating, slightly comforting and also, discomforting at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, we're going to be doing this forever. But yeah, so like like I said, our doc continues, right? He says it leads to the patient's delusions that his body has been invaded by an alien intelligence. And folks, I know we keep breaking up this doctor's speech. It's because so much is going on as he's speaking. So much is going on visually, right? We got the outside shot of the clinic, right? We got Reagan thrashing around on the bed, and now we got Ellen Burstyn sort of like taking it all in. Like literally we see her first. She's taking this like deep breath, almost as if the whole time, right? The whole time.
Oh, I was on top of that time.
Should mark these in red, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's almost like the whole time that she hasn't been breathing, right? She licks her lips, again, as if she has been in a trance, right? Listening to this doc unload all this stuff, and now her mouth is dry, right? And then she closes her eyes and sort of like regathers herself before looking back up again. Again, like Chris is trying so hard not to lose it in front of these doctors. Now, we cut from there to a shot of our Dr. Barringer, and we realize that it was him speaking this whole...
The whole time? Oh, God, now I'm jumping the gun.
Now you jumped the gun. Okay, let's try that again. And we realize it was him speaking the whole time. The whole time? And I just want to, people are going to get, like, that's the email that we get, Kynan. It's like, stop with the Sally Field stuff.
Oh, no, I doubt that very much. I think they're going to write in when we don't do it.
It's like, you do it more than the Mrs. Doubtfire Minute. Come on. Well, there isn't a Mrs. Doubtfire Minute, I don't think.
No.
So, might be, I don't know, just put that in our back pocket. Evidence, minute 69. Exorcist Minute folks said they were going to do it. And I just want to say before we move on how much I appreciate the economics of the shots in this minute. Like he's been talking this entire time up to this point, a full 30 seconds, and we've been treated to all of these amazing shots, right? Like that are telling us a parallel story, right? Is the best way I can put it. And our brains are able to take in both of these stories at the same time. Right. We could just as easily have had all of that stuff happening before or after his speech and then just train the camera on Peter Masterson for his big monologue. But no, we're melding it together in this way that I really love. It saves so much time. And it doesn't save time explaining it. I just spent more time talking about it, but there you go. But we cut from there to a wide shot, and we finally see the room. I feel like that's another thing, like another trick, like withholding the size and the shape of the space until after we've already like been in there for a while, right? Is that a common enough thing to where they like maybe have a name for it or a purpose, like to evoke a feeling?
There must be. The typical strategy, right, is to start wide and then get closer.
Right.
I think that's so inherent that there's not a term for that. There might be one for going the opposite direction. It seems to be what Friedkin and the editors prefer to do.
Yeah. Like I get this feel, like I can see like an old like film noir, like, or some kind of like mafia movie, and it's just a close up of two guys' faces and is like, so we're in agreement. Yes. And we have a deal. Yes. And then we get the wide shot and they're in like some abandoned warehouse. Right. And it's like, one of them says, make it happen or something like that, right? Like, but like this whole time that they've been talking,
the whole time,
we just see their faces and we don't know the space, like the environment of where they are, and then the very last shot is like we see where they are. Like I've seen that 100,000 times. It must be. Absolutely. There's got to be a name for it or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to hear it if there is.
Yeah. Now the feeling I got. And maybe this is intentional, maybe not. Again, maybe I'm reading too deeply into this. But so when the doc is talking, we get this montage that ends with a medium shot of him, right? That's what it comes around to. He's big on the screen. In the movie theater, he would be huge, right? Speaking with authority, right? And then we cut from there to a wide shot of the room and a whole crowd, a whole country club of doctors and little Chris MacNeil. very small on the screen, surrounded by these white coats. You even got like two on either side of the room leaning against the wall like guards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And behind her even, the secretary, right? Guarding the only exit. Chris is trapped. She is tiny. And that's when the movie has her speak. And even her voice is like echoey in the way that the doctor's wasn't, right? The doc had a mic trained on him and we heard his voice loud and clear. But for Chris, the room is literally distorting her voice.
Right.
That's got to be a conscious decision, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, you couldn't do that by accident.
Yeah. So she says, so she speaks. And again, it's very echoey, it's very small, it's very tiny, right? She says, look, I'm telling you again, and you better believe me, right? And this is more like Chris MacNeil power, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is the same tone that she used in the past that made us like lean back, like, whoa, she's serious, right? And in another scene in the house, we'd be shaking in our boots. But in this big echoey room with all these doctors, it's so sad. It's so ineffective. Her voice is being drowned out by an ocean of like silence and indifference.
Mm-hmm.
And she finishes. She says, I am not going to lock her up in some goddamn asylum. Now, immediately, the doc tries to correct her. And this I found disheartening as well, right? Because you expect the doc, all the docs, to be like, oh, no, Miss MacNeil, heaven forbid, we're on the case, not to worry. We're going to find out what's wrong with your daughter. But he doesn't say that. Mm-hmm. Like by trying to correct her, and saying, well, it's not an asylum, because that's what he was going to say.
Right.
If she hadn't interrupted him. By doing that, he's basically confirming her fear that they are giving up. And that's when I realized, like, this meeting with all these doctors, 88 come to find, this meeting is not like, it's not a huddle. It's not like them being like, okay, on to the next plan. Here's what we're going to do. That's not what this meeting is. This meeting is them saying, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing we can do. We got to take your daughter away from you because we've exhausted all other options. Kynan, I didn't realize until this viewing that that's what this is. They're signing off. Like how else is this meeting going to go? They got nothing. If not for the next thing that happens, they probably got the van parked right outside ready to take Reagan away.
Right.
I didn't even realize that until now. And it's not like, sorry, we can't help you. We're going to leave you and your daughter alone now. It's more like, sorry, we can't help you, but you've given us your daughter. And the best thing for her, in our opinion, is that she is put away. Holy shit.
Right. And again, it's not an asylum. It's a spa. Right. So the van has asylum, but it's crossed off really hastily. It's like Reagan
they didn't
MacNeil
even bother
Spa.
to paint it over. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's expensive. It says Reagan MacNeil Spa. That's a really interesting idea that this is the end of the road here. I think that's very interesting because I'm of two minds of the way that this scene is laid out, because it's her at this big table. And you're right. It is intimidating. At the same time, it is set up differently than Dr. Klein's office, which is like, I'm on one side of the table and I'm giving you all these diagnoses, and you're just sitting there and taking it, right? Like I'm doling out that, like, she kind of has a spot at the table, right?
Yeah, I can see that now. It's almost like a board meeting, like she's the CEO maybe or something.
Yeah, and she's not quite at the head of it, or there is no head of it, right? Like,
right.
And it also is the first time that we see doctors who are women, a handful of them, and doctors who are Black and Asian or Latino or something, right? And, and like it's as the kids say, it looks like a little more like America, not all the way, but some have two minds of it. But as you're saying, this is being sort of a the end of the road. They're in this sort of U around her, as you point out, and it's like she's looking at like a dead end or like a cul-de-sac or something.
Yeah. And so actually, thank you for bringing up that interpretation. I never thought of it that way. Like for me, I saw it as like she is being
surrounded,
told.
right.
Yeah, she is surrounded and being told like, this is it, right?
Right. That's what I mean, is that they're trying to make it feel like, oh, this is a welcoming place, but it's still the same old stuff.
Yeah. And so, folks, when the doc says sorry, as if he's like inconvenienced her, like I am right there with Chris. I'm like, fuck you, sorry. Like, and her raising her voice is completely justified, 100%. Like I'd be throwing things at this doctor, right? They'd have to put both of us away after this meeting, right? But Chris MacNeil is not me, thank God. And she is able to once again rein in her, again, completely justified emotions. Actually, I don't even know if it's reining in so much as like petering out, right? Like she's tired. Like she's tired.
But not so tired that she's going to be like, okay, take her to the spa.
Right. Yeah.
Right, I'll see her next weekend, maybe.
Give her a mani-pedi, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But now, yeah. So from here, we get an over-the-shoulder shot of Barringer. This is Chris's over the shoulder. But like I said,
or it's over Chris's shoulder.
Over Chris's shoulder. That's what I mean. Yeah. But like I said, she's so tired that she can't even stay in the frame. Right. Like her head drops down out of frame, and then she sort of sits up and back in her seat. Now, meanwhile, our doc has this little look. You might have missed it. Go back if you did. His eyes flick up to the other docs in the room for a split second, and then he looks solemnly down. And he's got this great, serious, sad doctor frown as he turns away. And I don't know how much of this is like an act. Like, yes, I'm considering something here, and this, or is this him like genuinely girding himself because the next thing that he says is the craziest, nuttiest, most batshit fucking thing that he could possibly say. But we're going to have to wait until the next minute to hear what that is.
Yeah.
Prepare yourselves, folks.
It could lose him his not only lose him his license, maybe, but like his wife will leave him.
He's going to have to get in that spa van himself.
Right, Dr. Barringer or Mrs. Barringer. Did you hear what Dr. Barringer said at the clip? Yeah. He said, what? Yeah. As a joke? No.
No. He was very serious about it.
Very serious. He had it written down in his agenda meeting, his minutes for the meeting.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Underlined a few times.
But yeah, speaking of minutes. Okay, yeah. So for this minute, that's all I got. Kynan, have you got anything else for this minute?
No, I think we got it.
Folks, this has been another excellent Exorcist Minute. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can reach me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Kynan DOES, and you could reach me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Kynan.
Yep. We got our listener group, Compelling Conversations. Go check that out and request to join, and we'll let you in here with us. Thank you so much to everyone who has shared the show by word of mouth or on social media. And a big thank you to everyone who's given us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. We really, really appreciate it. That's going to help our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, Kynan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, the power of zombies compels you.
Brains.
Oh
wait, or Lester might say gains. Jim Gaines.
Okay, see, folks, this time Kynan mentioned it. But no, when I do go to the gym, I sometimes do feel like a zombie because I'm like, like you take that like pre-workout stuff and you're just like, you wake up at 5 a.m. because that's the only time you can do it because you got a job and you got a passion that you work on like a podcast. Ooh. Look at me. My life is so rich. I have so much to be grateful for, man.
Games.
Yeah. So 5 a.m. and I'm just like checking into the gym and I'm like, biceps and triceps.
Don't forget leg day.
Never skip leg day. As I'm shuffling out. That's another zombie walk when you're
that's the leg day.
Yeah, that's the those zombies in Walking Dead that don't have any legs. And they're just crawling on the floor. That's what you are after leg day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.